Detroit, Michigan. Fairmont Controls, who is going to give us a hands-on person type of introduction. Controls is a product, which is all new for you. Have you heard of Bond Controls before? Okay. So you just want to learn it and get into it and see how it's different. It's going to make you a lot of money. That's the most important thing. This is very, very simple to program. If you just have 5 components, you want to get started on it, the program in about 20 minutes with a beautiful front page and beautiful graphics. So, Matt? Marty.
My predecessor was a Matt, so I get called all sorts of stuff. Anyhow, good morning, everybody. Marty Cooper with On Controls. We're based out of Detroit, Michigan. We've been doing app-based, cloud-based control solutions for about 7 years. 2009, we started as a control solution called iRule. iRule is a DIY product we still sell to the DIY market. On Controls was born out of that about 4 years ago because a lot of dealers were starting to use a DIY product, our DIY product, and then they were asking us, well, how do I manage my customers, and how do I do this, and how do I do that? And everything was, well, it's not designed for that. It's designed for a homeowner to take it home and program it up and control their home theater, or control their living room, or maybe a bar, control their system, but it's a one-off type of a product. So we developed On Controls with that idea that, all right, now we got lots of chairs. All right. So we developed On Controls with the idea that we want it to be for dealers, we want it to be repeatable, we want pricing that makes sense, we want hardware. So instead of going out and just buying our app and then downloading, getting the software, you're not downloading anything. It's all on the internet. It's cloud-based. But instead of having that as a one-off type of a thing, we want it to be repeatable. We want you to be able to make money doing it. We want you to be protected, so we don't publish the pricing. We've developed a line of hardware to go with it. So it's really one of those things that we looked at what we were doing with the DIY product, and as it grew, we realized that dealers needed something different than that DIY product. The basis of the software, though, is the same, because you're trying to control stuff. You're trying to control all the things in here that are now sitting on a network, or they're IR controlled, or they're RS-232. We even have contact closure if you're trying to make a screen go up and down, or a gate go open and closed, or whatever you're trying to do there, garage doors. So we've looked at all of those things, and we've continued to build this product over time. We were one of the first companies to get into that download an app and control your system off of your smartphone or your tablet. So we got into the game really early, back right after the iPad had launched. And in fact, our first app was developed for iPod Touch, which I don't even think exists anymore, because everybody has a phone. It's basically a touch with a phone in it. So we've got 3 parts to our team. Sales, which I'm the head of sales and marketing. Support, we've got a support team, most of which is in our office in Detroit, and we do have one guy actually that's in Texas, and so he helps cover West Coast as far as questions and via phone, via email, and then our development team. So we are at heart a software company, and 2/3 of our employees, we're about 28 employees now, 2/3 of them are software developers. So that's the heart of what we do. Everything else is kind of ancillary to support that, and as we keep developing and growing this product and this brand, well, that's our main goal, our main strategy. By the way, this is the building we're in Detroit. It's the old Madison Theater. It's about just shy of a 100-year-old theater. Yes.
So, is this going to be available only for us installers, or also for the clients?
So only through dealers. Okay. So only through integrators and dealers. Okay. They can't just call us up and get it. Okay. Again, they can get iRule. It's a product that they can download the app and get it there and go online and program. We don't really offer the support. We don't offer the hardware. We don't offer, I'll show you in a few minutes, Manager, which is online, where you can manage all of your clients,
Yeah.
purchase the software licenses. You do it. Everything's done online for you, so you can do it from wherever. You don't have to be at the customer's home. You do it
Okay.
wherever you're at,
Yeah.
and then this has to be at their home. And of course, the equipment they're trying to control has to be at their house. And I keep saying house. This is something that I would say maybe more than 50% of the time is used in commercial. It's used in bars, it's used in restaurants, it's used in casinos, it's used in a lot of those. With some of our biggest successes have been in the commercial area. And I think that most of you guys, as you move forward, that's where a lot of the money-making side of the business is. It's in doing commercial, it's in doing businesses and getting their camera systems set up and maybe putting a monitor up and whatever their business happens to be. What we're doing is pulling that all together so they don't have 16 remotes and they don't have 16 apps that they got to open each app to try to figure out how to get to things. This glues everything together, ties it all into one app so that they can, even if they're using that other app, i.e. HEOS, for instance. We don't have a HEOS module, but what we can do is an app launch. So from within our app, where you're controlling everything else, if they want to go in and do something on their HEOS, they can hit the HEOS button in our app and launch into the HEOS app, and then just hit the back button to jump back into our app. So we've got app launches for all sorts of stuff because everything has an app nowadays. The difference is you can get to it all through our app instead of having to tell the customer, okay, well, when you want to do this, you got to leave them an instruction sheet when you leave. We don't want to have to do an instruction sheet. We want it to be whoever picks up that, they can go in here and they can look and see what do I want to do today? What do I want to watch? And when they hit that, whether it's I want to control the lighting and it brings up their lighting controls, whether it's they have an Apple TV and they want to control their Apple TV, their Blu-ray, their cable box, whatever you want to put on there. I mentioned Sonos. This is the Sonos app launch. We have a button that says Sonos. All the customer needs to know is when they're in the On Controls app, they want to control the Sonos, HEOS, fill in the blank, whatever that happens to be. They hit the button and it pulls up the app. Now, I don't have the Sonos hooked up here, so it's right now looking for it. But again, if I want to go back to, just hit the back button and now you're back into our app and you choose something else. Select what you want to do. I'm getting ahead of myself. This kind of gives you a little background on what On Controls is. Again, cloud-enabled control solution. So rather than having to download something here that you're doing the programming on, you're downloading an app here, and this is the brains of the control system then. And by that I mean we're using the processing power of your tablet or smartphone rather than having another black box somewhere that's doing the processing. And now you got this talking to that, which is talking to all the stuff on your network. This is communicating right through your IP network to your devices. And if they're IP controllable devices, we'll control them directly. You don't need anything in the middle to convert over. But if it is IR that you're trying to do, I have a little black box that plugs into your network. We'll make a Wi-Fi version of it, and we make a PoE version of it. So you can now plug in an IR emitter, and now it still goes through your network, but now it talks to that television, let's say, and tells it when to turn off and when to turn on and when to do volume and when to do whatever you've programmed it to do. RS-232, contact closure, and I've got some other hardware that's newer that kind of combines some things so you can cut down on, again, the number of pieces of hardware you're going to have to sell your client. We operate on both iOS and Android. It's one of the things that we first developed it on iOS. We then, as we grew that, we looked at Android and we brought Android into the mix. We're one of the only companies to do both. There are companies out there that do one or they do the other, but we're one of the only companies doing something, a solution like this that does both Android and iOS. Android gets a little hairy. There are hundreds of different Android devices out there. We work on all of them. So it's not a matter of saying, oh, well, you can't do it on that, or oh, you bought that phone, sorry, you can't do it. Any Android or iOS device, we've continued as iOS has expanded into a Pro iPad. We now do Pro iPad. The new 7 phones actually are identical to the 6s as far as resolution, so we work just fine on all the new iPhones.
So what
Yes.
would happen, let's say the iPad breaks and I have to replace it?
All you do is download the app, which is a free download.
Yeah.
Go on the store,
Yeah.
download the app, put in the same username and password you created when you created that customer's account, boom, it's done. You don't have to do, so you bring that up further in my presentation, but it's an interesting idea because we have a company in Florida that builds yachts. They put on controls on every single one of the yachts. We've already had them where yachts move around when they're out in the ocean. iPad's on the bed, hit a wave and it falls on the floor and breaks. Next port, or if you want to have a helicopter bring it in or however much you want to spend for it, you get a new iPad, it's the same iPad. You put it in as long as you have connection to a network. So I say the next port, you go into any place, a cafe that has Wi-Fi, you download the app, you sync it, then when you go back onto the boat and you're out on the water, as long as you're within then the network that it was set up on, it's fine. So you don't actually have to have on the yacht or in a house in the mountains or wherever, you don't have to have internet connection to make the system control everything that it's controlling. You only have to have it when you're updating the programming on the app. So there's a lot of cool stuff that it can do. Again, this is not like we just started yesterday, and a lot of people are hearing about it for the first time as we're growing and as we're expanding and getting into different distributors in different markets. But we've been doing this now for 7, almost 8 years, and we've continued to make it better and get.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On your GUIs there,
Yeah.
is it possible to customize the GUIs or
100%.
100%.
110%. You can move them, delete buttons, make them bigger, smaller, pink, purple, turquoise.
Import JPEGs, all that.
Import background images. I'm going to show a little bit about that, but it'll be towards the end. But absolutely, 100% customizable, which is, again, a lot of the companies that are out there aren't. You get this set of things, and that's
And
what
do you
it
guys
is.
offer RS-232 drivers that you guys have already created for
Yep.
us that we can just drag and drop in?
Hundreds, if not thousands. So their biggest library is IR, and the biggest thing out there is still IR control.
IP drivers as well?
We have IP drivers, so IP, RS-232, contact closure, and IR. Contact closure is not really, it's on, off, open, close. But yeah, we've got a huge, you can go online on controls.com and see compatible devices, and it's listed into categories, IP, RS-232, IR, and see all of the things. Honestly, it's not 100% up to date because we're adding them all the time.
Yeah.
We've got over 5,100 drivers at this point.
And I can definitely learn IR.
You can learn IR too. So what you're doing when you learn IR, any of our boxes that have IR also have an IR sensor. So you have to have an IR box to control IR anyway.
Yeah.
Sensors
So
on
it's
the
all
back
built
on this
in.
one.
That's cool.
Yeah. So now this is sitting on your network. You go in, you point that remote, it catches the code, and then you put it into your programming.
I didn't mean to interrupt or get
Not a
you
problem.
ahead of the game, but I didn't know that.
I
I'm gonna
told-
be heading out, so I can
I was saying I'm flexible. I can jump around or get back. That's why I have this, honestly, so that I can. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Easy to configure and customize. He brought up customization. I will, when I show you the programming, I will start with a wizard. We have a wizard, just like even the cheapest Harmony remotes that are out there. It steps you through. It asks the questions so that you can, when you're done with the wizard, you can have a fully functioning controller. But the beauty in our system is customization, and that's what customers like. They want it to be for them, not be like, oh, my next door neighbor has it and our remotes look identical. I want it to have my dog in the background or my business in the background. Or, you know, we did the Mohican Sun, one of our dealers did, big casino out in Atlantic City, I believe. They put a layout, they did a floor layout, and literally you can say, oh, I'm over here, and tap on that part of the page, and it then takes you to that area, and then lists out all the screens, and then you can pick a screen. It's going through a big matrix switch to decide what you want to play on it. But they list it out as, again, you don't have to know the system at all. You literally can walk up, pull it up, and go, oh, I'm here, and I want to control this, and I want it on this screen. It's that simple. The beauty behind the bars and restaurants and casinos, there's a lot of turnover in those places. You don't want to have every time somebody new starts, you got to give them, here's my instruction sheet on how to use this just to control that. You want to be able to get it in their hands and have them turn on the thing and make it go from day one. You can have it on multiple handsets. This is what we refer to as a handset. I can have it on here and here. I could have the programming be virtually identical, or I could have more stuff on my phone if I'm the manager or the owner, and have very few things for them to get into and potentially mess up. So you can, if you're at home, make a grandma remote. So when she's over watching the kids, she's not going to get in, and then you're going to get a phone call while you're at dinner saying, I don't know what I did with the system. We have sound and no picture, or vice versa, or it's blaring, it's full blast. You make it simple. You keep it simple for somebody if that's all you want them to access, or a babysitter version.
And that will be under the same license, or do they have to get a different?
So we have a couple different software licenses. We have one that's one handset and up to 10 devices to control. We have one that's 5 and 50, and then you can add on to those as you want. And when I say 5, I mean 5 unique. So if you've got 5 of the exact same iPad, and you just have them around the house or around the business, and they're the same programming on all of them, it's not different, that's one handset. Because you're just putting the same username and password, selecting that handset, and now you've got 5 identical. It's one handset in our programming. When you get into custom, this one's different from this one, or because these aren't the same, this one's different than this one. That's a unique handset. That's where you get into 2 or 3 or 4. You can have Android and iOS running on the same license. So you don't have to even stick them. Husband has one phone and wife has another, and one's Android and one's iOS. No problem. It's 2 handsets, and you can, again, customize it. Hers is pink, his is blue. Not to be gender specific, but you can do it however you want. Or you can keep it really simple and have it be the same across the board. You can create templates. So if you said, I want it to look like it's coming from my company, and I want my logo in the corner or something, fine. And you can make a template and do it over and over and over and over and over, so that every customer that you get has that same fit and finish for everything that you do, everything you put out there. So it's really up to you as an integrator how you want to make it. We're not locking you into, well, this is the way you have to do it, and this is how big the buttons are, and this is where they're placed, and you can't take buttons away, so there might be buttons there that don't do anything, or you don't want the customer pushing because they're going to get off in la la land doing who knows what. So very customizing. You can customize it to the nth degree. Again, I mentioned software as the processor. There is no additional processor here. This is acting as a processor. Now that's a good and a bad thing. I mentioned Android. There's lots and lots of tablets out there. Some of them are $50. You tell me, is a $50 Android tablet and a $500 Android tablet going to have the same processor? No. One's got a faster processor. One can do more things faster and at the same time. So I would recommend, if you're doing a large-scale job with lots of things going on, that it's sending out and receiving information from lots of different things. First of all, you want to make sure your network's good. Second of all, you want to make sure the processor in here is a fast one. Any current iOS device, no problem. No problem. Their processors are really second to none. And then the same thing, if you're looking at Android, look at the better ones that are out there, and those are the ones that you want to do for larger jobs. If you're doing somebody's home theater room with the basic room license, which is one device or one handset, 10 devices, you can probably do the $50 tablet, because they're going to hit, DVD or Blu-ray, and then they're going to watch it, and it's not constantly pinging back and forth on the network trying to get information back from things. So if you ever have a question of, I'm thinking about using this tablet, I'm not sure whether it's a good fit for this job, let us know. I'll be handing out business cards, because everybody that's here today, whether you're a current dealer or thinking about becoming a dealer, if you become a dealer, I'm going to give you a room license. So that 1 in 10 license, it's $100 dealer cost, $200 retail. You're getting it just for showing up today. Now, you have to be a dealer. It's like me giving you monopoly money and saying, here you go, but you can't spend it on anything. But if you're a dealer already, again, I can put it right into your manager account. I'll have it done potentially by the end of the day. I'm driving down to San Diego tonight, but by the end of the week, you'll have it in your account. You can use it for whatever you want. If you're not a dealer yet, and you don't become a dealer today, which these guys are offering some specials today as well, let's say it's 3 weeks from now, a month from now, you'll have my card, send me an email, I was at the training, I'm now a dealer, I'll put $100 in your account at that point. So you'll be able to, again, use it for your home system, use it for a job. I don't care, it's yours. Again, any size or any budget. We don't really have any limitations on, again, the number of devices you're trying to control is only a limitation of which software license you do. But if you go beyond that, you just add more. You can add them one at a time. $10 dealer cost adds either a handset or a device. So if you're at 10, and you max that one out, you need 11. For $10 dealer cost, you can add that 11th one. If you get to a point where you're going, let's say you've got the one of 50, and you need like 90, you buy 2 system licenses, and we'll merge them together for you, rather than adding 10. Pretty soon you've gone way beyond what you'd do if you just merge those 2 licenses. Again, we're flexible. We can even go back if you bought the room license, and now it really makes more sense to have the system license. We can go back, effectively charge you the difference, and then upgrade that license to now be 5 and 50 instead of 1 and 10. So there's lots of things that we can do from our end and remotely. We don't have to send you anything or download. It's all just, we'll go into your account, make the change, you'll be able to then log back in, and there it is. You'll have more ability to grow things. Cloud-based design environment, again, from day one, that was a very important part because we want you guys to be able to work from wherever. We also want you to be able to go back and make changes when the customer, not that they ever ask for changes, but when they do, you'll be able to say, okay, no problem. What would you like? You want less buttons, more buttons? You want them moved around? You want something different in the background? If they give you a laundry list of things to do in an email, before you even respond to the email, you can go through and make the changes and then send them an email back and say, go ahead and resync it, which is honestly as simple as hitting the sync button. They hit sync, it goes through and syncs, they select that handset. If they've got multiple handsets around the house, they select the handset for that, and all the changes are done. I actually did this on site at a customer's house, an old client of mine, back when I was an integrator. We had URC remotes, and she kept getting to the point where, well, I want something that it couldn't do because it's a hard button remote. I switched her out for on controls. We show up, we get it all set up. She's, oh, this is great, and immediately, because that's the kind of customer she is, she starts asking for changes. Well, what about this? And I really like this button on my Comcast remote, and blah, blah, blah. One of my support guys would come with me because he's way better at programming than me, and he's over in the corner and he's eavesdropping, and he's making the changes as she's talking. So by the time she's done and I go, okay, that's it. She's like, yep. He's over there and he goes, hey, show her how to sync the handset. I show her, and I kind of like, he's smiling, grinning in the corner. I bring it, she brings it up. We hit sync. She goes back in. All the changes are made, and she's staring at it. She goes, oh my gosh, it's like magic. How did it know? I said, well, he was making the changes, but the point being, you could be on the phone with them making those changes. Tell them to resync, and it's done. So you don't have to roll a truck. You don't have to go plug your computer into their remote. Those changes happen. It's synced up to that same account. Again, as long as this has a connection to the internet, your computer has a connection to the internet, all of the programming is out there in the cloud. It's living on our servers, so it can do that. And by our servers, I mean Google servers. We don't have a server farm at our office. We bought space on Google servers so that we have probably one of the most robust servers that's out there. There's probably, well, Walmart might have bigger, badder servers, the U.S. government, who knows, but Hillary Clinton, you had to poke the bear. So the point being, we've got all of that. Everything's encrypted. There's no worry about, oh, somebody's going to get it. First of all, what would they do? Change button placement on somebody's remote? There's no personal information that's there. Personal information that's in Manager that we'll get into is their address, phone number. You can leave a lot of that out if you want, but a lot of guys use Manager as a way of having all that data there so they have the customer's information. Because, you could be sitting at McDonald's working on this. As long as you're on Wi-Fi, you don't have to be at your office or at their house. I talked about most of this. Drop and drag configuration. Again, I'll show you once we get past the wizard. You can move buttons anywhere you want. You can delete them. You can bring in different buttons. You can put a macro on any button. You can do app launches and all sorts of fun stuff from anywhere that you want on the remote. Reliable and bulletproof systems. We've designed it to be simple, meaning this is what's talking directly to through your network over IP, which is not something we created. We're doing it on systems that are already in place that are reliable and bulletproof, rather than designing something that anytime we make a change or something, it goes down and now we got to fix it. You guys are out there running around trying to figure out what's wrong with your clients. The one thing that we do run into sometimes, clients generally will take it upon themselves to get a new router. That's going to create headaches for anything you guys are doing if it's on their network. Well, it creates the same problems. If we've gone in and set IP addresses, static IP addresses and such, and now all of a sudden there's a new router in the mix, there's no talking from router now to all of those pieces that are on the network, including any of our gateways. So we a lot of times we'll get a phone call sometimes from the end user. I don't know, it just stopped working. Well, what do you mean it just stopped working? Well, Comcast came out and put a new router in. It didn't just stop working, something happened. And then we can usually either walk them through it, if it's simply a matter of going into panels and going and assigning IP addresses, sometimes we can walk them through. But generally, we'll find out, put your system in, and point them back to the dealer. Because honestly, you guys potentially, if they've created a problem, you guys can charge them to go fix that problem. And you're there, versus we're in Detroit. We might be able to fix it from Detroit, since a lot of it's through the internet and through the network. But I'd rather have you guys be the point of contact, not us. That being said, we have phone support, we have email support. You can get a hold of us. A lot of times, phone support's just during the working business hours, 9 to 5 kind of hours, that's Eastern Standard Time. Email support, I don't know when these guys sleep, because I'll see sometimes guys answering support emails at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So we do email support even on the weekends. I'll see stuff. Again, we're not guaranteeing you'll get a response on a Saturday or Sunday or 11 or midnight or 2 in the morning. But if you put that email there, it goes to all of our support guys. And if one of them happens to be sitting there on Facebook and a thing pops up and he goes, oh, I know the answer to that, they'll respond to it and get that answer back out to you pretty quickly. We try to be as customer focused, and by customer I mean you guys, as we can. Let's get past there. This is probably a little old, but it gives you an idea of at least scale. These are some companies. These guys actually I think are out here in Southern California. But we've done stuff at the commercial level through our dealers. For the Phoenix Suns, Mohican Sun I mentioned earlier, Caesars in Atlantic City. And one I like to point out, because everybody wants to raise their hand and go, wait a minute, I don't want to compete with Best Buy. We're not competing with Best Buy. Best Buy came to us a few years ago now because they had 470 Magnolia stores. And they had all these racks of equipment and TVs and speakers all lined up along the wall, and they had no way for everything to talk to each other. So people, and again, they have a pretty high turnover as well. So, you know, even the guy who's supposed to be selling this stuff would walk into the room and it's like, I don't know how, oh, you want to hear those speakers on that receiver? Let me see, and then get back and start plugging wires in. They actually contracted with us to do it at enterprise level. We did all 470 Magnolia stores with our software to control their room. It's not something they sell, they use it. It's expanded actually onto their entire headquarters in Minnesota is going to be running on our software as well. So in fact, it's expanding. We've got a new commercial product coming out after the first of the year. It's going to go into that. The commercial product will actually, a complete ground up thing that we've done in collaboration with Kramer Electronics. It will use a brain. It will also collect data and do all sorts of fun stuff that people in the commercial world might care about. People in the residential world probably won't as much, and it's going to be a more expensive product. But yeah, Best Buy's using it. We were out there 4 weeks ago in Minnesota, putting in some stuff there. We actually, since you guys are in Southern California, Lucasfilms is actually using it in all of their rooms using our software. More recently, Pixar is another one. A lot of it has to do with, it started with Lucasfilm. One of the guys was using our DIY product at home, came in and was frustrated that the stuff that they had there wasn't working right. And then their rooms weren't working. They couldn't control things, couldn't do things. So he brought us into the mix. It's grown to be all of Lucasfilms. And therefore, when people move around and go to another company to work, they're going, hey, Lucasfilms has this cool thing over there that they're using. And next thing we know, we've got about 4 or 5 different movie companies that are using ours to control their sound rooms and control their production.
My question is, how do in a commercial environment, for example, most of the commercial clients that I have, the network guy on the job, which is me, will create a IP base for the wired, and then a separate network for the wireless, which has 2 different IP schemes. So let's say they hire me to do a little conference room. Do I have to then create a network just for that conference room? Because I can't get around it if the stuff, the iPad's going to be on their wireless,
if they can't, they don't talk to each other. There would need to be some communication path. I'm not that IP guy.
That's where I find an issue. That's why I don't sell it to my commercial clients, because I can't go in there and have them change their whole infrastructure for a control.
My opinion would be sell them an additional router and have it be for that. Have it connect out to the outside world, but not be part of whatever else there's going on. Are you talking like banks or somebody where it's got to be locked down?
Like I don't know about banks, but I have a client, like, for example, in the movie industry, their agents and their whole wireless network is on one, and they're all
they should be able to even add a second wireless network so that they can have one that's locked down for just them or this to be running on, and then one if they want to have it so that people can sit there on their phone and browse and do stuff. There are ways of separating it out, absolutely. It happens all the time. If you want, I'll give you, you're going to get my card. Definitely shoot me an email, and I can get somebody back at the office that speaks that language all the time, and they can tell you exactly, here's the way to do it, here's the best way to do it, because certainly there's 10 ways to do it. It's just a matter of what's the best way, and what's the best way for you to present it to your client. You don't want to walk in there and just say, oh, just put in a new router, and then we don't want to put in a new router. So you want to have some different options, but absolutely you can do it. And there's going to be some that they don't want it. I mentioned banks because banks are very particular about what's going on their network. They don't want somebody somehow getting in and stealing all their money. Again, our system, what's in place, doesn't have to communicating to the outside world until you need to do any sort of update to the programming or whatever you're doing. So it can literally sit there and never talk to the outside world, and you can make sure that that's set up that way. We can help you make sure it's set up that way. So usually we can get around whatever objections are out there about it. There are other companies out there doing stuff that's connecting online and controlling through this that may be different as far as how it has to interact with the network, but we're pretty flexible. We didn't redesign the wheel. We said we want it to be able to live on whatever network you're doing there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, I figured that was the way to do it. Sometimes I just go away from it because if it doesn't work, then I made them create a whole new network and just fuck. I used it a lot for residential.
So you're already doing?
Yeah, I'm Aussie. I'm always in contact with.
How are you? Yeah, I don't know faces. I talk to people on the phone and email, and so he's an existing dealer. Anybody else here already a dealer? Ever tried it? Have you heard on controls before these guys were doing it? Okay, well, that's at least good. Sometimes I have a whole room of people going, nope, never heard of you. iRule, it's funny. iRule, because it's been around longer. I'll say, hey, who's heard on controls? And everybody goes, and then I go, well, how about iRule? And they all go, okay, so we're doing something wrong here. But it's been around longer. So again,
Are there any plans of an actual handheld, or no? It's just gonna be.
We've tried because every training we do and every dealer asks for it. The problem is with a handheld remote. I mentioned this is your processor. Now all of a sudden you have a remote that's got to talk to this, which then talks to everything that's on your network. If this goes, well, this wouldn't go in your pocket, but if this is your processor now, and it goes in your pocket and walks away, and then the wife comes and picks up the hard button remote and starts doing this, there's nothing there it's talking to. It's talking to something that's could be 100 miles away. So, could it be done? Yes. Something would have to live on your network all the time and never shut off, and the app always running in order for it to work. And then you'd have to have a remote that's probably talking Bluetooth, so it's something that can communicate with it. The problem we have with it is reliability. We don't want to put something out there that has that scenario of the iPad died, now there's no app running. The app got turned off, now there's no app running. The iPad went in your suitcase and went with you on your trip, so now you have a hard button remote that's dumb. It's just sending out commands and there's no endpoint. So what I usually tell people is, because most of the time I ask, what are you going to use a handheld remote for? Channel surfing. Channel surfing in bed at night, so I can feel for the button. Again, I'm not trying to say, oh, don't, it's easy, do something else, but if it's the cable box or the satellite box, they all come with a hard button remote. Give them that hard button remote and say, at night, when you're watching TV in bed and you don't want to have this bright screen in your face that you're picking things from, use that and just use it for that. Or
do you guys work with the iPort hard button case yet? Not yet.
Not well. They tend to fight. They tend to start fighting.
I know they made one with the hard button for the channel up and down.
We had one up with
the iPort case.
Yeah.
They have
it ends up working independently of ours, because you're really programming that now independently of this. Those buttons aren't talking to our app. They're just talking to the stuff that's on the network. The problem you have sometimes there is if you've got hard buttons and then our buttons, and they're both trying to reach the same thing at the same time, we had it in our office go a little bit weird on us because the device at the other end is going, who do I listen? What am I doing? Who do I listen to? So, can it be done? Again, yes. Just be careful, because depending on how you're doing it, it may cause more issues than it's worth. But yeah, hard button remotes are one of the things we've been literally for 5 years now at least been being asked for it, trying to do it. I don't know. Do you guys sell any hard button remotes? URC or RTI or anybody? Many of my distributors do, and I tell, if you if they need a hard button remote, sell them a hard button remote, and they can work in tandem. You can have a RTI or URC or the DirecTV box remote. They can work at the same time as ours. Again, I wish I could say, yes, we've got one that's coming.
It's the same thing. You're still going to charge for the remote. You're still going to charge for the programming,
yes,
the installation. So they are really buying two systems when you do a hard
button.
iPad. It does make a difference. So you can put two systems together. But
yeah, it's funny because I mentioned, we've got this newer product that'll be coming out, really directed towards heavy commercial, universities, hospitals, big jobs through Kramer. That one, because it has a processor, will be more likely to be able to do hard button. But what's interesting in commercial, they don't want a hard button remote.
Yeah.
They don't want. So it's like
that would be a residential.
So if I could use my crystal ball, see what's going to happen in the future with that new product coming out, I would like to see trickle down into the residential and light commercial side. But again, then it means a processor. Now you're starting to talk about really competing with some of the other companies that are out there that have that, Control 4 being probably one of the biggest. And now you're really going head to head with that because, I got to put a little box connected to your network. But that would then allow us to do something like keypads and hard button remotes. I kind of already mentioned this. Handsets, we refer to these as handsets. Anything that is your user interface, that's your handset. Gateways are all these. These are just converting. These sit on your network. These convert from IP over to 232, or to IR, or to contact closure. Or, since we have a relationship with Kramer, they're building some boxes for us now. IR and RS-232. And has a local, you can plug it in locally, or you can power it over Ethernet. So this packs a whole bunch of stuff into one box. So you can literally put this in their rack or anywhere on their network. Again, if you're connecting it to pieces IR, you're probably going to want to put it in the vicinity of those things you're controlling, but you can extend those if you want to. These you can extend. I've had somebody do it over a couple hundred feet. Just depends on that piece at the other end, whether it likes the slightly lower output signal that you're going to get going that sort of length. But these do output pretty high. Again, they're commercial grade. These guys build, Kramer builds everything. It's all metal. It is rack mountable. These are not. These are built by Global Cache for us. So these are something that are small enough you can literally sit it on top of a piece, behind a piece, dangling off the back. It doesn't matter. These are a little heavier. If you're putting them in a rack, that rack over there, they make a rack mount kit for it as well. You can fit up to 3 of these in one view space. So again, I see these going into more commercial jobs because of the style that they are and all the things that they do. But this is called our Pro Series. This is our standard on-road product. Again, I'll go into more detail there, but that's what the gateways are. Device is what you're trying to control, whether that be a TV or cable box, or the bridge that you're doing your Lutron with, or your HEOS smart bridge. Not HEOS. HEOS has whatever you're trying to control. That's what you're doing there. I will bring up this. I mentioned 10 devices is what you're controlling on a room license, 50 devices on a system license. If you're, and this is something I actually had to learn when I came to work with on controls, because I sat down and went, oh my God, I've done a few houses where every dimmer and every switch, oh, so I'm going to max out that quickly. It's the brain that's controlling all, that's talking to all those dimmers and switches, whether it be from Lutron or whoever. That is what you're actually talking to. That's one device. So it could be as many dimmers and switches at that point. You're controlling one device. We're seeing it as one device. So it doesn't actually add up as quickly as you might think, except when you get into larger scale, you know, sports bars and things. They got 50 of these hanging on the wall. That maxes out pretty quickly. But again, we can add system licenses together, and now you have up to 10 handsets and up to 100 devices that you can control. I haven't talked pricing yet, but it's actually pretty reasonable. For the room license, it's $100 dealer cost. That's one handset, 10 devices, for 5 times as many. So you go to 5 handsets and 50 devices, it's $195. So not even twice the price, get you 5 times as many.
The other difference is the modules, right? You don't get the modules with the $100 price.
Yes, you do.
Oh, you do now?
Anything from On Controls, you get all of our modules.
Okay, I didn't know.
And leading into what modules are, we've pre-built modules so that you don't have to go through. It already knows if you drag in the Lutron module, that it will now be talking to Lutron. If you drag in the automation module, if you drag in a Denon and Marantz, we have a Denon and Marantz module. We have an OnQ Integra module. We have a bunch of modules. And what those are is, instead of one command and one thing at a time that you're dragging in and you're creating, it knows, oh, you're dragging in this module, you're putting it into that. So it knows all of the things that can be done with that device, with that thing you're trying to control. Well, we got a list here. It's actually larger than that at this point. But we work with, again, some of the big for lighting, Cam. Randy had talked to me a couple weeks ago, probably, about Hike Vision. I mentioned to one of the guys here, I'm going to hopefully borrow one of the more popular Hike Vision cameras and take it back with me, so that we can develop, whether it's a full-blown module or just the capability of integrating, being that half of their shelf space here is Hike Vision, and as I venture out around the country, that's a pretty popular brand. I think it's #1, right, for cameras. So we think we've already got it figured out, but we have no way of testing it. So unless we say, hey Ozzy, test this for us, we'd rather test it at our facility, figure it out, and then push it out to everybody and say, hey look, this works. It works with this range of cameras, and it works with these things. So again, we're always looking to find new opportunities and new things we can work with. We consider ourselves brand agnostic, meaning we're not lined up with any. I mean, there's a bunch of names there, and you got like you've got Denon, and you got those, but we'd rather work with everybody. We're a software company at heart. We sell hardware so that we can do, it's a means to an end. We can do those things, but we're not selling lighting control. We're not selling home automation products like some of the companies that are out there. We just want to work with whoever's is out there. So that's one of them that's on our radar. And since I'm out here, I'm going to see if I could borrow one, put it in there, and once we figured it all out, we'll ship it back, and then we'll push it out to all of our dealers that has something that'll work. This is a lot of the stuff we've already covered. No software and updates to install. It's in the cloud. You're logging in, whether you're a manager or builder, which I'll show you, to do your programming, to set up your clients, put in the software. This is connecting to the cloud. There isn't any wires you have to plug in to communicate and talk them back and forth when you're doing programming. And that, again, means that you don't have to roll a truck anytime they need something. Most of the time, you can make the changes and corrections and updates, and you don't have to. Again, the time is one of the most costly things we all have, as well as gas. But we try to do that. That eliminates unnecessary service calls. Oh, thank you very much. Pretty much that's what this whole page goes about. So the remote access we talked about on number 5, I like to clarify. We do have a piece now which can give your client remote access to control their system. I'll talk about that when I get to talking about hardware. When we talk about remote access, this is for you guys to have remote access from a programming standpoint. So you can get in and make those updates and perform magic like we did at my client's house. You can do those things without having to go there. You can do it remotely. So that's, again, one of those things. Yeah.
Does it push to the devices, or
they have to hit sync. Again, that's one of those things that I believe it's a limitation of iOS and possibly Android to not be able to just push it and make that app update. We do those updates when we update the app itself. You get that little thing that says there's an update for this, and then they go through and do that. That's different than the programming within the app needing to be updated. So no, there's not a push. Again, down the road, it's what we're incorporating into the commercial product, because that's one of those things. It's not that hard to call up your client and say, hey, hit this button and hit this button and sync it. It's a whole other thing if this is living on a boardroom table or on a wall in a hotel or wherever. Who are you going to call and tell them to go hit that button? You need to be able to push those things, and you can even set it up on the commercial product.
I like it more on the side of locking them out.
Well,
because a lot of times, you charge a good amount of money to do that, and then they don't want, they'll pay you most of the jobs, or they'll owe you something, and they don't like it. There's no way to get in there and take it off their iPad. That they can use it basically to that. So if they don't pay you the remaining balance, pretty much.
So what he's talking about is, so once you put in that username and password and sync it, it'll run forever on that version of your programming.
I don't I don't give my customers the password. That's the thing. They don't have access to the password.
Yeah, because it's dotted out.
And I block them out to the manager account. They can't log in and do their changes themselves either. So.
Yeah. And I will tell you right now,
they'll use it on one device forever.
Yep.
But
we're on your side though. We have end users call us up. I don't like my dealer anymore, or whatever. Usually we find out that they haven't paid something. But our first thing is, you need to talk to your dealer. Oh, well, I can't get a hold of them or whatever. Oh, okay, hold on just a second. We'll actually call up the dealer. Hey, this guy's a... And then we get the real story. Well, he owes me money, or this happened, or that happened, or... We want you guys to work it out if you can. While we develop the software, and while we have it running on servers that we've purchased space on, the contract when you do the programming is in between you and your client. So we'll put it back to them. We also get the request of, well, I found a new installer and I want them to now do the programming. You guys own the programming. When you do the programming for that client, it's your programming. And we will come back to you and say, this is what they want to do. Now sometimes dealers are more than happy to say, that guy's a pain in the butt, Go ahead. Here it is. I'm giving it away. Sometimes it's no. That's my programming, and that is your programming. And so far, we haven't, knock on wicker, we haven't had anybody threaten to sue us or anything. But if it did, again, that's the contract that's there is between you and your client, not between. We don't get in the middle and just say, we're taking it away from you and giving it to somebody else. It's your intellectual property once you've done that programming. I want to kind of go through some of these quickly because we're going to talk about them later, but IP-based equipment without additional hardware. Again, all of these little black boxes aren't necessary if you're controlling things that we control IP. They're sitting on the network, you go in and pull the programming in that's IP, it'll talk directly through the network to that dead-end receiver or that Kios or a Sonos or a Lutron or whatever you have that's IP-based. So you could potentially do a job with no hardware. You literally buy that software, do the programming, have it connected and linked up with the right things on there through their network. You don't have to put any additional hardware in. So now you take a piece of product that could cost you, yes?
Do you have any interface to, like, say, Z-Wave?
So we don't, but there's a bunch of them out there that we work with. So as an example, Vera is one of them. Leviton makes one. There's 4 or 5.
There's
and
modules for that.
What's that?
There's modules, right?
Yeah, there's modules for
All
those.
of Vera's products.
So really,
You've got on-controlled modules.
On Controls makes the modules, but you have to get then again that piece from Vera,
Like,
and then you can talk to.
Lutron Catheta, the Z-Wave product, you can control it. But you need to buy it across all of Catheta's products.
Yeah.
Get it all set up there.
Like, see all the quick set there?
Same thing with
That we had a bunch of these sitting in our office. So that's now Z-Wave, and then now it's going to talk to a Vera or a Leviton or whatever you've decided, whatever you're going to sell and put in there. So while we don't have a Z-Wave piece here, we work with enough of the big ones.
You should reach out to Wink.
What's that? Wink?
They don't want to work with anybody. They have a very.
We may have already reached out to
I'm telling you, they have a. I tried talking to them. Wink. They have a huge library of like Z-Wave and all third-party controls. So it's like.
All right.
If you could control their shit, man, you can control almost anything. It's pretty much.
Okay. Wink.
I'm like.
I'll look into it.
There's no money in it for us because it's a consumer product. You can just go buy it at Home Depot, but it's a way to like actually control. It's kind of like Vera basically.
Sure.
Like, they don't control their own product; they control everybody's product.
Yeah, and then there's companies like Insteon that's got really cool stuff. But again, like you said, there's not a lot of money in it because it's designed for DIYers. Somebody's going to buy it at Home Depot. Here's what I tell you, because people look at our product similarly. They say it's $195 for a system license, and if I don't need any hardware, where's their money to be made? I don't tell you guys how much to sell it for. $390, 195 times 2, it's a 50-point product. $390 is the retail on it, not published pricing. Plus, as soon as you lump in your programming charges and any services that you're adding in, charge them whatever you want. Be competitive. We can compete, and I'll say it. We can compete with Crestron. We can compete with some of the most expensive control and automation products in the market, and we do. And it's funny because we'll have guys that go into a job and they're really like, I'm replacing a Crestron system in this classroom at a university or something. I don't know if it'll do everything it needs to do. And then after they've done it, we've helped them along and told them what they should maybe use with it. And then they go back and the client's super happy and they spent 1/4 of the price they'd spend on doing Crestron. Just be careful and don't undercut yourself and say, well, OnControl's products are inexpensive, so I have to. It's going to be it's always going to be an inexpensive product for my client. Price it appropriately. Don't underprice it. Charge them, but again, charge it as a whole package, not just as an individualized line item thing. So even if you're using a Wink or Insteon or Vera, they can find the prices on those, but they can't find the prices on what you charge to.
That's why I sell it.
Integrate
There's
everything.
money in it. I'm able to make money on it all day long.
What do you sell the system for?
Well, I thought the license is $390. That's what I sell it for. And then I charge $270 for the on-link, and then I charge either $350 to like $600 for programming. It depends on the programming, but
Do you break it down line item like that
do.
for them?
I do.
So
Because my clients always want to know what they're paying for, and I don't mind because they can go online and they won't be able to find it.
Right.
So it's not like you can look it up and say, oh, it's cheaper. The iRules, I got into this because of iRules. So I did do iRule first. And a client told me about iRules.
Yep.
He wanted me to sell him an iPad control. I went to RTI. RTI is $8,900 for the processor, $250 for the license, one device only. By the time I quoted him, I hadn't made any money. It was already $1,000.
Yeah.
The guy was like, oh no, I found this thing called iRule.
Yeah.
Let me look into it. So I sold him iRule.
Sure.
And then iRule turned into On Controls and I became an On Controls dealer.
Problem with
I don't like iRules because it is out there, but it hasn't affected me much.
the
So
problem with iRule is not necessarily with the software end. It's when you start looking at hardware. Again, these are made by Global Cache. Guess what works with iRule? Global Cache products. Guess what's all over the internet? You can find everywhere. Global Cache products. So, and some distributors sell Global Cache and stuff. But what we want to get away from as much as possible is your client Google searching it and going, oh, Ozzy's charging me this for a product I can get.
I had a problem with it in the beginning when you guys first did it. I thought it wasn't going to work, but it's true. Because I used to sell the Global Cache for what you could buy it online. I couldn't make any money on it.
Right.
Because it's online. So basically they see it's got a Global Cache sticker. But
Yeah.
once they came out with that, it was like, yeah, it looks like it, but
And it's locked.
you can't find it for cheaper than $270.
And it's locked out
Yeah.
too. So,
It works.
if your client goes out and says, oh, I saw what you're going to sell me, saw it, and then I went online and, well, looks like the same thing from Global Cache, so I bought a bunch of them. They won't work on controls. We've gone in, yes. So it's been flashed with, even though it's, yes, physically the same product, they're different, and they can't just plug them in and make them work. They're locked, they won't work with on controls. So, that being said, if you get into a situation where you have to use a Global Cache piece, we can unlock them. It doesn't happen often because, again, we don't want necessarily a dealer going out and buying a bunch of Global Cache and not buying the right hardware, but trying to work around the system, or their client trying to work around the system. But if you get into a situation, you're going into an older install that has Global Cache already, or you
I
still
still
have
have installs that have it. So
So-
the license, my understanding is, like you said, it is still available to go with, but I wouldn't. I mean, at this point, I would move forward and sell the new thing.
Yep.
But yeah, if it goes bad at a certain point, you're gonna have to replace it.
So we have ways around it, but it's not really the rule of thumb or the way you should be doing it.
I do residential, man. I used to sell URC, so the remote's what 400 for like Max 900, 450, whatever. The program 250, right? The handheld remote. Everybody has an iPad.
Or a,
Like they gotta buy
or a
an iPad,
smartphone
so
at this point.
I'm able to make money on the license, 200 right there. Then I make another 135 for the unit right there, and then I make program. It's quick. And if you sell the same system, you have it saved, just program the same thing. It takes you 10 minutes, literally. And you don't do anything.
So we work with a ton of stuff out there. Again, everybody thinks, oh, you control my TV, my Blu-ray player, and my cable box. We work with shades and blinds and lighting and garage doors and cameras and you name it. We've got, I mentioned earlier, over 5,100 drivers, and a lot of them are IP. A lot of them are RS-232. Still predominantly IR when you're talking AV here, because when you get a remote, it's more than likely, but changing, but more than likely it's an IR remote. So we work with lots and lots of different stuff that's out there. Thermostats is one of those things that's also very, a lot of people are starting to integrate. This is just kind of a summary here. Easy to use, easy to design, easy to implement. We want it to be easy. We don't want it to be rocket science. Our program, when you become a dealer, we put you through training. It's online. You can do it from wherever you're at. It's 13 modules. It's about 4 hours worth of videos. It's videos. It's follow along. There's a quiz at the end of some of the videos. At the end, we actually have you program a handset and submit it, and then we'll check it. You can actually check it yourself because you can control. We'll have you put in some IP addresses that we've done port forwarding, and you control stuff at our office. And when you pull up a FOSCAM camera that you've done in the programming and see, oh, and I hit this button, it changes the screen on the TV that the camera's pointed at. So you don't have to send somebody to Detroit for half a week to do training. You can put one guy through to become an authorized dealer, or as many people as you want through. And there's no additional charge for any of the training. I will warn, a lot of guys get stuck in the training because you buy a starter package, it's either $495 or $695, depending on what hardware you get with the starter package. And then we invite you to training, and you get in training, and then life gets in the way, and you start to go, well, I only spent $500 and I'm busy doing these other things. Get through the training, we'll put you on our website, and then we give you access to all the support and all the back end stuff that you can get into. And then you have the ability to go out and put it on a job. I recommend as soon as you can find an opportunity to put this into after you become a dealer, do it. Because once you see what it can do and once your client sees, you're going to all of a sudden, the light bulb goes on and you go, wow, I could, like I did, I could go back on a URC client that's been complaining ever since I put it in that it can't do this and it can't do that. And now I can do all the stuff that they wanted to do because I can make it custom. And I already know that they've got a phone in their pocket that I can put it on, or they've got an iPad, or we could get them into an inexpensive tablet, or it doesn't have to be inexpensive. Again, depending on who your clients are, our stuff's inexpensive relative to a lot of the other things that they spend money on. Snappy operation. Again, we're trying to cut out the middleman, not have an extra processor in the middle. Have it operating over their IP network. The thing I warn against with this, to make this a reality, is don't go with too cheap of a processor, and don't go with too cheap of a network. Make sure the network's good. Make sure that you've got something in place that's got good speed and reliability as far as the processing.
You say too cheap, like what, an older iPad or?
iPads up to about 3 generations is fine. The only one we don't support is the original iPad. We don't support it anymore, but most of them don't hold a charge long enough anymore anyway. So you're going to find that some of those limitations aren't really a reality because people don't have the older ones because they can't use them anymore. But iPads, if it will work with our system, which is really anything newer than the first generation iPads are generally fine. It's when you start to get into Chinese-made $50 Android tablet you can buy on Amazon. They're really designed for reading books and maybe a little internet browsing, but it also really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're just controlling a system in one room and you're talking to a cable box, making the TV change inputs and control volume on an AV receiver, even those generally will work fine. It's when you start to get into adding lighting control and adding your thermostat and two-way feedback so you know what the temperature is, and running widgets where it tells you it's constantly going out and figuring out what the weather and the temperature is like, and all sorts of stuff that you can start to customize and add when you start doing it. I don't go too cheap on a tablet. Don't let your customer also say, oh well, I'm going to buy the cheapest tablet that's out there because it'll work. Every time that's happened, eventually we get oh, it's really slow and it lags, and I hit buttons, and 2 seconds later it actually does the command. And that's generally this, the handset is not robust enough as far as the processor, or the network gets on. Same thing. If you let it, the AT&T or the Comcast router or the basic router that comes with some of those internet services, sometimes aren't the best that are out there. And it also depends on how much other stuff's on their network. So those are the kind of things you have to think about, and don't just point the finger at on controls of, hey, there's a problem, this isn't working right. Well, it's probably something else in the system that's causing that to be an issue. And we'll go through that with you. Our support guys will say, well, what kind of router is it? What kind of handset is it? How much other stuff's on the network? Download the Fing app. You guys familiar with Fing? It's a free app you can download, Android or iOS. And you can pull it up and it'll show everything, every device that's on your network. We recommend getting it because when you're going to go in...
How does it call?
Fing, F-I-N-G. Fing. It's...
I'll get it to you.
Oh, I have it.
So it's one of those apps, it's free, and it allows you to go in and see everything that's on the network. So now, when you're setting this up and you have to assign IP addresses, you pull up Fing, oh, there's the IP address. There's the IP address. You can have it on the same tablet that you're doing this, or put it on your phone, and now you can pull Fing up here and be just copying over the things from one to the other. long. That went way longer than I thought it was going to be because we kept jumping around, which is going to make the next two smaller PowerPoints go faster because I already went over most of it. I'm going to right now give you guys my business card. Like I said, Ozzy's going to get $100 put into his account. If you guys sign up as a dealer, you get a $100 room license. I say room license, I put $100 in your account. Whatever you want to use it for is up to you. He knows because I talked to him last week. He had a weird amount of money in his account and needed to get something done. I just went in and made it enough money that he could then get a license. We'll work with you. We want to make sure that you guys are taken care of and you're able to get your jobs done and not be like, well, you know, I don't like red tape. I don't like to say, well, you didn't do it the right way or you didn't do it with this, and now I have to send you a custom invoice and you got to
You can always complain, but I mean, for the most part, it's worked out pretty good.
Yeah, and now that you've got somebody locally that's stocking.
I need Sonos to work, but it's not you guys, it's Sonos.
So he mentioned Sonos.
They opened up but it's not to everybody.
Yeah, they only opened up their API to some companies. I think eventually it'll get there.
Yeah, they'll get there.
So you had it under your modules. What does that mean?
So we do have a
Works,
module.
but it's not.
It works, but it's very limited. So it'll do play, pause, stop. It'll do all your transport commands. It'll give you some artwork. But when you look at it versus the Sonos app that they continue to make better and bigger and grander and add things to, it's not even close.
What about Helios? Did you guys integrate with Helios?
We don't right now. We're possibly working on